The vast and silent dark between stars was not empty. It was a tapestry of dangers unseen, a lesson the royal cruiser of the celestial ascendancy had learned in the most brutal manner. It hung now, a glittering broken jewel in the void, its engine core dead and its hull scarred by plasma burns. The attack had been swift, a pirate ambush at the edge of a spiraling nebula. The ship's guard had fought with valor, but valor meant little against overwhelming numbers and ruthless intent. Within the fortified observation deck, the princess watched the enemy vessels approach through the transparent alloy. Her attendants were a quiet murmur of fear behind her. The view was not of stars, but of the approaching end. The pirates' ships were ugly things, cobbled together from salvage and malice, now closing for the final boarding. She straightened the ornate folds of her gown, a garment of woven starlight filament, and prepared to meet her fate with the dignity her station required. There would be no rescue. Her fleet was light years away. Then the void changed. It began as a distortion, a patch of space that seemed to ripple like water. The pirates saw it too. Their ships hesitated. From the center of the ripple, it emerged. It was a ship, but unlike any she had ever seen. It was angular and grim, its hull a non-reflective gray that drank the light. It bore no elegant curves, no shining banners. It was a thing of stark lines and brutal geometry, smaller than the cruiser, but projecting a sense of immense, coiled density. It moved without sound, positioning itself between the broken cruiser and the pirates. A single, tight beam transmission pierced the silence on the cruiser's bridge. The voice that followed was calm, devoid of the musical tones of her people. It was a voice of flat plains and steady horizons. Identify. Her captain, wounded but steadfast, responded. This is the royal cruiser Luminance of the celestial ascendancy. We are under attack. Understood. The word was not a promise, merely an acknowledgement. The pirate leader, a hulking brute from a species known for its chitinous plating, broadcast a universal threat frequency. This is not your fight, little ghost. Drift away or become debris. The gray ship did not drift. It simply activated. What happened next was not a battle. It was a surgical dissection. Beams of precise, blinding energy lanced from the gray vessel, not the wild plasma of the pirates, but coherent lines of pure force that pierced engine housings and weapon ports with unerring accuracy. It moved with a speed that defied physics, a flicker on the scanners, always where the pirates' targeting solutions failed. Their shields flared and died. Their weapons fell silent. Within moments, 3 pirate ships were adrift, powerless. The remaining 2 turned and fled into the nebula's maw, pursued not by the gray ship, but by a pair of small, intelligent projectiles that shot after them like vengeful comets. Silence returned, deeper than before. The gray ship turned slowly, aligning itself with the cruiser's main airlock. The same calm voice returned. Your attackers are neutralized. We are docking to offer medical and technical aid. Do you accept? The princess looked at her captain, who nodded weakly. We accept, she said, her own voice clear. With gratitude. The docking was a seamless affair. The human airlock connected with a soft thud that resonated through the wounded cruiser. When the doors cycled open, the rescue party stood revealed. The princess had expected warriors clad in gleaming powered armor, figures of heroic proportion. These were not that. They wore functional environment suits, their visors opaque. They were of modest height, their forms neither imposing nor graceful. They moved with a relaxed, economical efficiency, spreading out without command. One team went to the wounded, their medical kits opening to reveal devices that hummed and glowed as they knitted flesh and stabilized vital signs. Another team assessed the engine core with quiet technical murmurs. Their leader stood before the princess and her retinue. He removed his helmet, The sight struck her with a physical force. The face was plain. It was a face of warm-toned skin, etched with lines that spoke of experience rather than age. The eyes were a shade of brown like fertile soil, and they held a profound and quiet calm. His hair was dark, cropped short. There was no bioluminescent aura, no delicate bone structure, no natural crystalline adornment. He was simply, overwhelmingly, solid. He was a creature of a world of gravity and substance. "Ma'am," he said, with a slight, respectful dip of his head. "Are you injured?" She realized she was staring. "No, I am unharmed. You are human." "Yes, ma'am." The word carried through the gathered courtiers. A human. The galaxy knew of humanity, of course. They were a recent entry into the cosmic community, a species from a turbulent, high-gravity world deemed barely habitable by galactic standards. They were known as engineers, traders, and stubborn survivors. They were not known as warriors of such terrifying, effortless capability. Their ship, their technology, it was not supposed to be like this. Your intervention was. She searched for a word grand enough, miraculous. He offered a small, brief smile. Just good timing. Our listening post caught the distress spike. We were close. You destroyed them with ease. We discouraged them, he corrected gently. Their ships are built for intimidation, not sustained combat. Ours is built for something else. As his crew worked, the princess observed them. They did not swagger. They did not seek praise. They spoke softly to the wounded, helped the crew reroute power, and shared nutrient bars from their own supplies. One burly human, assisting with a damaged gravity plate, made a quiet comment that caused his companion to chuckle, a sound like stones tumbling in a gentle stream. They were not the heroes of legend. They were competent. Profoundly, utterly competent. The human commander, she learned his name was simply John, gave a final report to her captain. Your core is stable. Life support is at 100%. You have enough power for your beacon. Your fleet should be here in about 6 standard cycles. We will remain on patrol until they arrive. The princess found him later in the observation deck. He stood before the great window, a still silhouette against the nebula's glow, holding his helmet under his arm. She approached, her gown whispering on the deck. "You do not seem like what the stories say," she stated. He glanced at her. "What do the stories say?" "That humans are loud, reckless, primitive in your violence." He turned back to the stars. "Some are. We are a varied people. But out here, the loud don't last. Recklessness gets you killed. And violence," he paused, "violence is a tool. A sad one. You keep it sheathed, and you make sure when you draw it, the job is done cleanly, so you can put it away again. The goal is to build a quiet corner where you don't need it at all." She followed his gaze to where his gray ship floated, a silent sentinel. "Your ship. It is not like our vessels. It has no beauty. It's beautiful to me," he said, and there was no irony in his voice. "Every line has a purpose. It's honest. It doesn't pretend to be a palace. It's a shield. And sometimes a scalpel." She was silent for a long moment, watching the patient, ugly, magnificent ship. "Why did you come?" "We have no treaty with your kind." There was no reward to be gained. He seemed to consider the question deeply. "We heard a call for help," he said finally, as if it were the simplest equation in the universe. That was enough. 6 cycles later, the glittering armada of the celestial ascendancy emerged from faster-than-light travel, surrounding the wounded cruiser in a protective sphere of light and might. The human ship had already withdrawn to a respectful distance. A final transmission came through. "Luminance, your escort is here. Our patrol route resumes. Safe journeys." The princess rushed to the cum station. Wait, Commander. We owe you a debt. You must come to our homeworld. There will be honors, celebrations. Thank you, ma'am. His voice came back, warm but firm. But celebrations aren't really our way. We're just glad you're safe. The universe could use more quiet days. Vigil out. The gray ship's engines glowed a soft blue. It turned with a grace that belied its brutal shape and slid into the darkness. In a flicker of distorted light, it was gone. The royal flagship docked, and the Arch-Chancellor himself, her uncle, came aboard in a flourish of concern and regalia. My child, the reports said you were saved by... By what? Mercenaries? She stood at the great window, now repaired, looking at the spot where the gray ship had vanished. The dazzling fleet of her people, with their sweeping hulls and glowing spires, suddenly seemed ornate, fragile. No, uncle, she said, her voice soft with a new understanding. Not mercenaries. She turned to face him, her eyes alight with an amazement that had only deepened with time. We were saved by humans, and I do not believe we or anyone else truly knew what they were. She looked back at the empty stars, seeing not a void, but a space now occupied by a new and formidable truth. The stories had been wrong. Humanity was not primitive. They were profound. Their strength was not in noise, but in silence. Not in receiving honors, but in doing what was right. And in that moment, the princess understood that the most powerful force in the cosmos might not be the brightest or the loudest, but the one that stood quietly in the dark, keeping watch.